The assassin lands on Earth. The sky above old Earth was dark. Ash floated through the air like falling snow. Broken cities stretched across the land. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Except one man. And someone was coming for him. From the edge of the clouds, a silent ship hovered, invisible to human eyes. It opened like a flower, and a figure dropped from it, falling fast. She landed without a sound. Her name was Lizka. She was not like other aliens. She was a trained killer, part of a secret force called the Black Breath. Her orders were simple: kill the last human. They told her humans were dangerous, clever, and full of hate. They said this man, Callan, was building something dark, something that must never be finished. They said if he lived, millions would die. So, she had come to end him. She moved like a shadow through the ruins. Her body blended with the smoke and stone. Her skin changed colors, her breath slowed. Even her heartbeat could not be heard. She saw his shelter from a distance. It was made of old metal and glass, patched with pieces of alien tech. Lights flickered, weakly. Strange wires ran along the ground like roots. Then she saw him. He was sitting by a fire made from old wood and broken machines. He wore a coat far too thin for the cold. His face was tired, his hands covered in grease. He looked nothing like the monster they warned her about. Lizka waited and watched. He fixed a small machine with gentle hands. When it sparked, he smiled. A real smile. Not the kind of smile killers wore. A sound broke the silence. A weak cry. She turned fast, ready to strike, but it was only a small animal, thin and shaking. The human saw it too. He stood, took out a piece of food from his pocket, and placed it on the ground. The creature crawled forward. He didn't scare it. He didn't trap it. He just shared what little he had. Lizka's grip on her weapon tightened. She had killed for less than this. She had killed humans before. Why did this one make her feel unsure? She crept closer, hiding in the shadows of the broken wall. Inside the shelter, he sat near an old screen typing something. She zoomed her eyes. Words flashed across the screen. Calculations, star maps, repair logs. He was building something. They had told the truth about that. But it didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a signal. He was trying to send a message. Lizka's head tilted slightly. Why would a dangerous man call for help? Why not hide? Or build a bomb? Why do this, unless he wasn't dangerous at all? Her training screamed at her. Doubt was death. Questions were weakness. Complete the mission. Walk in, strike fast, vanish. And yet, she waited. Night came. Wind howled through the ruins. The fire burned low. The human stood and stretched, then walked to a corner, pulling a thick blanket over himself. This was her chance. Quietly, Lizka entered through the roof, dropping like a silent whisper. Her feet touched metal without sound. Her blade slid from her wrist. It was sharp enough to cut thought. She moved closer. 5 steps. 4. 3. He turned. His eyes met hers. Not in fear. Not in shock. He didn't move. He didn't scream. He just looked at her and said something soft. You don't have to do this. Her heart skipped. No one had ever looked at her like that. Like he already knew. Like he understood. She hesitated. Just a second. But it was enough. A gust of cold air rushed in and Lizka turned and vanished through the same hole she came from. She ran. Outside, the storm had grown worse. Ash and ice cut her skin. Her legs moved fast, but her thoughts moved faster. Who was this human? Why didn't he fight? Why did he speak to her like he cared? She didn't get far. Her body, trained for war, was still weak in this planet's cold. Her knees hit the ground. She gasped once, then collapsed near a wall. The world went black. Sometime later, warmth touched her face. She opened her eyes. The human was there. He had carried her back. She lay on a soft mat inside his shelter. A blanket covered her. Beside her, food waited on a plate. He had saved her. The one she came to kill had saved her. And Liska, the killer of humans, didn't understand why her hands were now shaking. The failed strike and unexpected kindness. Liska opened her eyes slowly. Her body felt heavier than before. The air smelled of old metal, firewood, and something else. Warmth. The room was dim. Soft lights flickered on the walls. Machines hummed quietly, like they were breathing. And there he was. The human sat at a nearby table, back turned to her, working on a broken device. His movements were calm, patient. He didn't look scared. He didn't tie her up. He didn't even hold a weapon. He had brought her inside, patched her wounds, wrapped her in warmth. Liska's hand twitched, searching for her hidden blade. It wasn't there. He spoke, not turning around. "Don't worry. I didn't take your weapons." His voice was soft, tired. "You looked cold. I thought maybe you didn't want to die out there." Her eyes narrowed. She sat up slowly, her muscles aching. "You knew I tried to kill you," she said, voice low. He nodded once, still not facing her. "I saw the blade. Saw your stance. I've seen death before. Yours was cleaner." "Then why?" she asked. "Why bring me back?" He finally turned to look at her. His eyes were not angry, not afraid. They held something far more dangerous. Trust. Because you stopped. Those two words hit her harder than any blade. She didn't reply. She didn't know how. Callan stood and brought her a metal cup filled with steaming liquid. "Drink. It's not poison. It's warm." She hesitated, then took the cup. The warmth seeped into her hands, her chest, her bones. He returned to his work, speaking quietly. "I don't get visitors. Last one was a drone that tried to explode in my face." She stared at him. "You joke." "Not very well," he replied, smiling for a brief moment. A silence fell between them. But it wasn't heavy. It was strange, like the quiet of a storm passing just overhead, waiting to return. "You were sent by the Zarin, weren't you?" he asked after a while. Her eyes sharpened. "What do you know of them?" "Enough to know they hate me," he said. "Enough to know they fear what I might become." Liska said nothing. She had no orders for this moment. No training for mercy, for warmth, for conversation. He pointed to a small machine beside him. It pulsed with dim blue light. "I'm trying to finish this. A beacon. To reach out. Not for help, but for understanding." "No one will answer," she said coldly. "The galaxy sees Earth as cursed." "Maybe," he replied, "but maybe someone out there still listens. Maybe someone remembers who we really were." He stood, stretched his arms, and added, "I didn't survive to become another weapon. I want to build something better." She studied him. His scars. His calm. His quiet sadness. No threat. No rage. Just a man trying to speak across a galaxy that refused to hear him. She should have killed him already. Should have slit his throat the moment he turned his back. That's what they trained her to do. That's what she had done to others, but she didn't. That night, after he fell asleep in his corner of the shelter, she sat alone, watching the flames in the heater flicker and dance. Her hand reached for the knife hidden beneath her armor. She held it in the dark. Her fingers trembled. She could still finish the mission. One cut. One breath. Then leave. But something stopped her. Not fear. Not pity. Something deeper. He had saved her life. And more than that, he had seen her, not just as an enemy, not just as a soldier, but as someone who could choose. And that choice was suddenly the heaviest thing she had ever held. She set the knife down. In that moment, something inside her broke, and something new began to grow in its place. The assassin starts to question everything. The morning light didn't break through the sky. It bled. Thin streaks of pale orange filtered through the thick clouds above the ruins of Earth, casting a ghostly glow across the shattered buildings. It was the kind of dawn that didn't promise hope, just survival. Callan stood outside the shelter, silently adjusting a dish he had built from broken satellite parts. His eyes followed the angle of the sun, calculating. Beneath the calm surface, he was always working, always building, always dreaming of connection. Inside the shelter, Liska sat cross-legged on the floor. She wasn't resting. She couldn't. Her mind had become a battlefield, and for the first time, the enemy wasn't someone else. It was her. She had been trained to question nothing, follow orders, eliminate targets, move on. Emotions were for the weak. Hesitation meant death, but Callan had survived her blade, and worse. He had touched a part of her that she didn't know still existed. He had shown kindness without needing to. He had looked into her eyes and told her she didn't have to kill. Now she found herself watching him instead of plotting his death. She noted how he spoke softly to the machines like they were friends, how he paused to help a small bird tangled in his wires, how he muttered thoughts out loud, not expecting anyone to answer. And sometimes she wanted to answer. As the days passed, they spoke more, slowly, carefully, like two strangers caught on opposite sides of a war they no longer believed in. Callan shared stories of what the Earth used to be, cities full of life, oceans that glowed under moonlight, people who once laughed without fear. We weren't perfect, he said, stirring a pot over the fire one evening, but we tried. We reached for stars we couldn't touch, and sometimes we held them. Liska listened, pretending not to care, but the way her eyes softened betrayed her. When she asked about the war, his face grew dark. The Zarin came as diplomats first, he said, but when we didn't kneel, they returned as conquerors. We were proud, maybe too proud. We fought back, and we paid the price. He didn't need to explain the rest. She had seen the results. Entire cities turned to ash, continents erased, a species brought to its knees, and yet he had survived. How did you live? She asked him one night. Voice barely above a whisper, he looked into the fire for a long time before answering. I didn't. Not really. The man I used to be died with everyone else. What's left is someone trying to finish a promise. He didn't say more. He didn't have to. She understood now that this man had buried not only bodies, but his own hope. And still, he kept moving forward. She began to see his strength. Not in muscle, not in weapons, but in the way he carried. Pain without letting it consume him. In the way he still chose kindness. In the way he smiled at her like she was more than her mission, and it terrified her, because she had never believed in anything more than duty. And now, for the first time, she wanted to believe in him. The change was slow, but real. One morning she helped him repair a cracked power cell. Later she cooked something for them both. It wasn't good, but he smiled anyway. She laughed, a real sound, sharp and surprised. Kaylin's eyes widened slightly at the sound like he had just seen something rare and beautiful. But her moment of peace shattered when she noticed the blinking light on her wrist communicator. Her tracker had activated. Her people were looking. For her. They would come. And when they found her, they would not ask questions. That night, she stepped outside alone. The wind was cold. She stood beneath the broken remains of an old satellite dish staring at the sky. Then, with shaking fingers, she took the tracker off her arm and crushed it beneath her boot. Sparks flew, and with it, her last tie to the empire she once served. She had made her choice, but she knew the cost was coming. Her people come for him, for the first time in her life. Liska woke not as a weapon, but as something uncertain. The morning air inside the shelter was still. Even the wind outside had stopped, like the planet itself was holding its breath. She watched Callan tinker with a broken transmitter, his hands stained with oil, his focus gentle and pure. He hummed to himself, a human song with no real words. Something about the sound made her chest feel heavier than armor. She had lied to him, Every word she spoke before was a cover, a shadow of truth. She was not a traveler. She was not lost. She was sent to end him. But that part of her was dying. When she stepped outside, the ruined world seemed quieter than before. The clouds above the city ruins didn't move. There was no wind, no sound, only the slow echo of her own breath. Then she saw it, a light in the sky, blinking, growing. Her eyes narrowed. It was not a star. It was not hope. It was a ship. They had come not to talk, not to ask, but to finish what she failed to do. Her feet moved before her mind did. She burst back inside, eyes wide, breath sharp. Callan looked up at once, sensing the storm behind her expression. "What is it?" he asked. "You need to hide," she said, pulling gear from the shelves and tossing it to him. He blinked in confusion. "What? Why?" She didn't answer. Not yet. She couldn't. Her voice shook. Her hands moved fast, but her soul felt slow. Callan stepped back, his face hardening. "Liska, what's coming?" She turned to face him fully. The lie had to end now. "They're coming for you," she said. "My people, the Zarin. I was one of them." His eyes didn't widen in fear, they dimmed in pain. "So it's true," he whispered. "You were sent to kill me." She nodded. There was no point hiding it anymore. But I didn't. I couldn't. And now they think I betrayed them. A long silence passed between them. He looked down at the gear she had thrown. "Why are you helping me now?" Her throat tightened. "Because you made me feel something no one ever has. Not pity, not shame, but choice. You let me choose who I wanted to be." His eyes met hers. For a moment there was no war, no species, no history, just two people standing on the edge of something breaking. Then the sky cracked with thunder. They both turned. The ship descended fast, cloaked in blue light and quiet malice. It hovered just beyond the edge of the ruins, waiting. Liska's heart pounded. They'll send scouts first. Fast. Quiet. They'll expect me to complete the mission or die trying. Callan clenched his jaw. Then let's make it hard for them. The next hour was chaos stitched with purpose. They planted traps along the shelter's perimeter. Callan's designs were clever, simple but brutal. Hidden shock mines, false doors, collapsing floors. Liska rigged motion sensors and cloaked tripwires, placing them with the care of someone protecting something precious. Night fell fast, and with it came shadows that didn't belong to the earth. Figures slipped between ruined buildings, wearing armor blacker than space. No sound. No light. Only death in motion. Liska saw them through a cracked window. 6 of them. Hunters. Former allies. Her old squad. She turned to Callan. "Stay inside, no matter what you hear." "I'm not hiding," he said firmly. "You're not a soldier," she snapped. "No," he said, stepping closer. "I'm something worse. I'm human. We don't run when it matters." He loaded a handheld energy tool, meant for welding, now modified into a crude blaster. It hummed weakly, but it was enough. To make her smile, they took positions. The hunters moved in. The first explosion came from the east side. One of Callan's mines tore through a wall, sending stone and dust flying. The second came moments later, catching one of the intruders in a pit of fire. But the rest came on. Fast. Merciless. Liska met the first one near the front door, blades flashing. Their weapons clashed with sharp energy, sparks lighting up the night. "Traitor," the hunter hissed. "You disgrace the blood." "No," Liska growled. "I finally understand it." She moved like wind, cutting low, spinning high, her body remembering every lesson and using it against them. Callan held the line beside her, shooting when he had to, pushing her back when she faltered. They fought together, not perfectly, but fiercely. 2 souls, 1 purpose, but they were outnumbered, and far above, the ship still waited. This was only the beginning. Hunted by her own kind, the night burned, not with fire, but with movement. silent, sharp, and deadly. The wind carried no scent, no sound, only tension, only the fear of what came next. Liska moved like a shadow caught in fury. Her blades danced. In her hands, each strike a whisper of the past, each dodge a memory of betrayal. The faces behind the helmets were familiar. She had trained with them, bled beside them, eaten in silence after missions soaked in death. Now they came to erase her. The Zarin did not tolerate disobedience. And there was no worse disobedience than mercy. She deflected a blow, spun under a plasma slash, and drove her elbow into the chest of a hunter. The armor cracked, and the figure fell. But there were more. Always more. Callan fought just behind her, holding his position near the generator, while his weapon was crude but his aim was true. Each shot wasn't just survival, it was protection, not for himself, but for her. And that broke something deeper in her than any blade ever could, because no one had ever fought for her. The battle pulled them through the ruins of the shelter. Sparks danced from broken tech. Sensors shrieked. Steel. Beams collapsed behind them. The warmth of the little world they built together shattered. They fell back into an alley, bodies pressed to a crumbling wall. Blood leaked from a gash across Liska's side. She touched it once, then tore a strip from her sleeve to bind it. "You're hurt," Callan said, breathing hard. "I've been worse," she lied, her breath ragged. His eyes scanned her wound, but he didn't argue. They didn't have time. "How many left?" he asked. "3. Maybe 4, she said, peeking around the corner. Her former commander moved in silence, leading the others. "They'll flush us out soon," she added. Callan clenched his jaw. "Then we do what humans do best." She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" He gave her a tired smile. "We hold the line." Liska almost laughed, but it came out as a cough. Blood touched her lips. Her legs trembled. Something in her chest cracked, not from injury but from realization. She wouldn't make it through the next fight. Not like this. And still, her hand tightened around her blade. Not for herself. For him. The alley echoed with footsteps. The final wave was here. Liska pushed Callan back. "Go," she said. "Run." "No." "This is not a debate," she growled. He stepped in front of her, putting his body between her and the death coming down the alley. "You think you're alone in this," he said. "You're not. You never were. Not anymore." The words hit her harder than any order ever had. Before she could answer, the first hunter rounded the corner. Callan fired. The blast hit armor, sending the figure back. Liska lunged forward, slicing through the second with a scream that came from somewhere ancient in her soul. But the third was faster. Liska turned too slow. Pain shot through her chest as energy ripped across her ribs. She collapsed to one knee. "Liska!" Callan shouted. She saw him leap forward, swinging a metal bar into the enemy's helmet. Once. Twice. Again. The hunter dropped. He fell to his knees beside her, gripping her face. "Stay with me," he begged. Her eyes fluttered. Breath came in shallow bursts. Blood poured from her side like memory slipping away. They won't stop," she whispered. "Then neither will I." "You should have let me die," she said, her voice soft and broken. "I didn't come this far to lose you," Callan said. "You changed everything." Above them the ship stirred. Bright light poured through the clouds, turning the alley white. A final command would come. A final purge. The Zarin didn't leave work half done. Liska reached up and touched Callan's face. "If I die," she said, "don't become what they fear. Become more." He gripped her hand. "You're not dying," he said. But she knew the truth. Her body was failing. Her mind drifted. In her last moments of clarity, she didn't think of orders or missions or duty. She thought of the man who saved her with a single act of kindness, and then the light above them changed, flickered, pulsed, like something was watching, something ancient, something waiting to awaken. The truth about Callan's blood. The light from the ship above pulsed like a heartbeat. steady, cold, and full of judgment. It flooded the ruins in pale blue glow, casting long shadows of the two figures crouched beneath it. Everything around Callan and Lizka felt frozen in that moment. The wind, the dust, the world. As if the galaxy itself had paused to witness what came next. Lizka was slipping. Her breath came in short gasps, shallow and sharp. Callan held her head in his lap, his hand pressing down on the wound at her side. Her blood was dark, almost violet, and it soaked through his fingers like ink from a dying star. "Hold on," he whispered. "Just stay with me." Her eyes fluttered. Her lips moved, forming a question he couldn't hear. Her fingers trembled as they tried to hold onto his jacket. Then came the sound, a low humming tone, rising from deep beneath the city ruins, vibrating through the ground like a buried scream. Callan looked up, confused. His body tensed. He felt heat in his chest. It wasn't pain, but pressure. Building. Stretching. And then something inside him opened. His vision blurred, but not from tears, from light. It was coming from him. His hands began to glow, soft at first, then brighter, as if his blood had turned to sunlight. Beneath him, Lizka's body shuddered. Her eyes widened slightly. "What? What are you?" she gasped. Callan didn't know. He had lived with the pain, the loneliness, the weight of being the last human. He never questioned why he survived. He only thought it was luck or stubbornness. But now, something old was waking inside him. Memories that weren't his began to surface. Cities that no longer existed. Names he had never spoken. Stars that no longer shined. In the back of his mind he heard voices. Not human, not alien, but something in between. They whispered of guardians, of a pact forged long before the Zarin rose to power. His blood, they said, was not ordinary. It carried code, genetic instructions left by an ancient race that once watched over the galaxy, a failsafe hidden inside humanity, waiting for a moment like this, waiting for kindness, waiting for love, waiting for a reason to rise. The light from Callan's hands poured into Lizka's wound. Her skin glowed where he touched it. Her breath steadied. Her fingers stopped trembling. The wound sealed before his eyes. She gasped sharply and then looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "You healed me," she whispered. Callan stared at his hands, his voice shaking. "I didn't know I could." Above them, the Zarin ship shifted. Alarms lit up across its hull. Scanners activated, reading the sudden energy surge. Deep inside the ship, one word repeated on their systems in a language lost to most. Awakening. On the ground, the remaining hunters saw it too. They paused in their march, eyes wide behind their visors. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lizka sat up slowly, the pain gone from her face, her strength returning too fast for logic to explain. She reached for Callan's hands, still glowing. With strange warmth, "They're going to panic," she said. "They'll see you as the weapon they feared." "I'm not a weapon," Callan said quietly. "I'm something else." She nodded. "You're the hope they tried to kill." The ship above them charged its weapons. A low rumble cracked through the air. Targeting systems locked on the coordinates below. Callan stood, his body still glowing faintly. The machines around them responded. One by one, they flickered to life. The broken screen in the shelter blinked. The old beacon pulsed. Even the damaged transmitter on the rooftop buzzed with raw energy. Lizka looked around, stunned. "You're waking the tech." "No," Callan said, his voice calm but filled with something new. "They're waking because they remember us." The Zarin hunter commander gave a sharp command. "Fire!" But the moment the words left his mouth, something ancient stirred below the surface of Earth. A blast of golden energy erupted from the beacon tower Callan had been building. It shot into the sky like a spear, crashing into the underside of the ship with blinding force. The ship didn't explode. It stopped moving. Completely. Lights across its surface shut down. Inside, the crew was paralyzed. Systems collapsed. Power drained. In orbit across distant stars, satellites began to blink. Ancient technology once thought dead activated. It was as if the entire galaxy was watching and remembering. Callan turned to Liska. They won't stop coming. But I think we just told the universe and we're still here. She looked at him, not as an assassin, not as a soldier, not even as a protector, but as someone who had found what her people had forgotten, something worth fighting for. The Empire falls to a spark of mercy for a long time. No one moved. The sky above the ruins of Earth was no longer just a blanket of cloud and smoke. It was a stage of silence. The Zarin ship hung there, frozen mid-command. Its systems caught. In a stasis it could neither understand nor break. On the ground, Callan stood beneath it, breathing slowly, his chest rising and falling like the pulse of something much older than himself. His glow had faded, but the change inside him remained. Liska was at his side, her body healed, her heart not yet. She felt the shift in the air, not just around them, but everywhere. This wasn't just the end of a battle. It was the beginning of a war the Empire could no longer control. Above, the ship's commander barked, "Orders." Nothing responded. Weapons had gone cold. Communication links were dead. Worse, they had been locked out of their own systems. "What is this?" One of the Zarin engineers whispered in panic. "A signal," another said, staring at the data flooding the screens. "A signal across the old grid, across everything we buried. On other planets, silent colonies forgotten by the Empire, machines flickered to life. In ancient ruins buried under sand and sea, once dead terminals began to hum again. The Yolka message was simple: the humans have returned. And with that message came another truth: they had never truly left. Callan and Liska walked slowly through the ruins. The last remaining hunters had vanished, retreating into shadows with questions in their minds and fear in their blood. No one dared engage them now, not after what they had seen, not after witnessing a myth come alive in the form of a tired man who had chosen mercy over vengeance. Liska looked at Callan. His steps were heavy, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of what he had become. "You're more than a man now," she said quietly. "I never wanted to be," he replied. "I just wanted to build something that mattered." "You did," she whispered. They reached the top of the shelter again. The damaged beacon tower still buzzed with energy, and through the cracks in the clouds, stars began to shine once more. He raised his eyes to the sky. "Do you think they're listening?" he asked. Liska followed his gaze. "They're all listening now," she said, "even the ones who never cared." Far across the stars, deep within the Zarin Empire's core world, the High Council gathered in silence. The air was thick with unease. A projection showed the image of Callan's glowing hands, the blast that had brought their warship to its knees. "A myth," one elder muttered. "They were supposed to be extinct." "He's not just a survivor," another said. "He's a key, something the ancient ones left behind. We destroyed their cities, but not their purpose." "And now?" No one answered, because the truth hung heavy over them. If one survived, there could be others. And if the galaxy remembered humanity, not as enemies, but as a beacon, then the Empire's fear-based rule would collapse. Hope was far more dangerous than any weapon. Back on Earth, Liska touched her side, feeling the scar beneath her armor. "They'll come again," she said, "stronger, with fleets. They'll want to erase you before others join you." Callan nodded. "Then let them come." He turned to her, his eyes no longer tired. "But I won't be alone this time." She stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. "Neither will I." The two stood at the edge of a world reborn, not perfect, not safe, but no longer forgotten. And when Callan reached for the controls of his beacon and activated the next signal, it sent more than just coordinates. It sent a story of a man who forgave his assassin, of a killer who chose to protect instead of destroy, of an empire built on fear, now shaken by the quiet power of understanding. The galaxy would never be the same again, and deep in the stars, others began to stir, others who remembered the songs of Earth, the warmth of humanity, the spark that once lit 1,000 worlds. The spark had returned, and it had chosen not to burn, but to heal.